News coming in that both India and China have withdrawn slightly to build trust. This is what we're being told, and this is from sources that a mutual withdrawal has taken place, but is most likely just limited to Galwan. Remember, there are several areas of contention as well as Pangong Lake, but in Galwan, according to sources, there has been some sort of mutual withdrawal, and a buffer zone has been created between Indian side and the Chinese side. Let's go across to Vishnu Som, who has all the details. Vishnu, what are you hearing?
Well, for starters, Gargi, I think we need to be very, very cautious as we report this, simply because it's very early days right now. And while our sources have indicated to us that there is a process of mutual disengagement in the Galwan Valley area, it remains to be seen whether this is a lasting disengagement and a genuine disengagement. There is another point over here. Satellite images of the Galwan Valley, which we have broadcast from just a few days back, on the 26th of June, indicate the river in spate. And the Chinese side were obviously dodging the river as it increased in its volume in the Galwan Valley. And while we haven't shown Indian positions, one would assume that our soldiers were doing the same. So therefore, in the process of dodging the flows of the river in spate, a few of the Chinese camps, in fact, several, moved locations slightly. So one needs to understand that the flow of the waters of the Galwan have also been fairly high, and therefore when one gauges or discusses a genuine, lasting withdrawal from that area, we would need to ensure that they are actually away from the embankment at the bend of the river where they have illegally occupied Indian territory, as we've been reporting. Now, when one does speak about mutual disengagement and assuming that this is genuine, then it basically means that both Indian forces and Chinese forces have moved back a certain distance. Now, our sources have told us very clearly that they are not willing to get into 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers or anything of that sort,
right,
but that there is a mutual withdrawal which has possibly taken place, and the area in between is what is called a buffer zone. Now, the question which arises, therefore, is if there is why would Indian soldiers withdraw since we've always been on Indian territory? And the answer to that is that we are trying to create a sense of confidence over there as this process continues, without for a moment giving up on any territorial gain. And if building that confidence means separating the forces of India and China by a certain distance on a mutual basis, it is being done with that in mind. So that is what the sources are telling us right now, and I would like to add that at the moment it appears that any disengagement that we are talking about is restricted to that Galwan area.
All right, and Vishnu, how would one authenticate something like this? You've spoken about satellite imagery that we've seen earlier. The June 15th clashes that took place was after a party went to actually check on whether the Chinese have in fact moved back. So when can we expect that this news would be authenticated?
Well, the army would be in a position to instantly authenticate this information on the basis of satellite imagery and a host of other technology which they use to monitor the entire area. India does employ some of the world's most advanced imaging satellites, and therefore there would be a fairly clear understanding of what the Chinese are doing on a fairly real-time basis. Now, it's unlikely that any of this real-time information would be shared with us, but yes, on the ground, it's quite likely that the army would also perhaps just move a little bit in the direction of the Chinese post to sort of physically see whether the Chinese post, which was illegally created on an embankment about 423 meters inside Indian territory in that Galwan area, if the Chinese have moved away from that area, whether any of the structures have moved away as well. I really want to stress on the flow of the Galwan River, Gargi, because it's a river in spate for the last couple of days, and therefore even for our soldiers to get to that point where the embankment lies, where the Chinese illegally created camps on our territory, would not be easy. It's fairly difficult with the river in spate. It's a very fast-flowing river, is the Galwan, and the satellite pictures of the 26th that we have seen, which we acquired commercially, indicates the river in spate. So one would have to be very careful if there is a physical movement of soldiers as they go back to that same area where the clashes took place, because that is where the illegal Chinese structures have been constructed.
Again, you're saying that to treat this news with caution. This is source-based news that's coming in of this possible disengagement. So welcome news, Vishnu, really, if correct, that there has been this disengagement, this moving back by the Chinese side.
I think this would be more than welcome news. But again, just so that we are cautious in reporting this, this has to take place for a lasting period of time. It has to be a part of a step-by-step process whereby disengagement takes place from all of the areas. If this is the start of a process, then it is certainly a welcome step, but it's a step that needs to be lasting. In other words, there shouldn't be a situation when the Chinese move back to that area. And only time will tell what their real intentions over here are.